Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream. We are back with one of our favorite companies, Origin Foods, and we got a special guest we're going to introduce today. Of course, anybody that's new to our program, our goal is to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. Companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are part of real mega trends that are at an inflection point right now, and there are multiple catalysts in place to ignite that increase in shareholder value, as we have seen with some of our big winners in the last 18, 20 months. We've had a number of these stocks, and we're going to find out if Origin is going to be that next 10 bagger. And so let's do this. We're going to introduce our special guest, and we'll ask him a couple questions, and then we'll open up for audience questions. And please, guys, ask your questions. It's your questions that really make these events special, and then decide for yourself if Origin is that next 100 bagger maybe. So with that said, Matt, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Jack.
So what I'd like to do is, Matt, first of all, I'd like to, this is your first time on our program. We know Matt Lurie, of course, our CEO. And so, Matt, the stock has actually, picked up a little bit since, the announcement came out that you're joining as a board advisor. So I think now, most investors, I don't think they know too much about you, but based on what was in the press release, obviously people are excited. So, we need to learn more about this, international man of mystery, Matt. So can you tell us a little bit about your background in building CPG brands?
Absolutely. I have a 30-year career here in food and beverage. I started right out of graduate school, looking to get classically trained, like my counterpart Yossi. I did 10 years at Dan and Yogurt, a couple years with Sara Lee, and then 3 tours of duty with Coca-Cola. But I started to fall in love with the health and wellness space, and took a shot on my first startup, which was Glasso Vitamin Water and Smart Water, and we were able.
That was a good first shot. That was a huge win.
And we were after a healthier consumer that didn't want artificial colors and flavors in their sports drinks, and we scaled that up and we exited to Coke for $4.1 billion. So that was my first successful.
Billion with a B.
Correct. And they recently did it again with Body Armor.
Body Armor.
$5.2 billion.
Body Armor. Was that which? Oh, it was sold again. Which brand? Which brand?
Body Armor was a beverage, better for you beverage that included electrolytes and coconut water, all combined into the same drink that was recently sold to Coke for $5.2 billion. Now I was not a part of that, but we had the same founder and CEO, Mike Rapoli, who led both Vitamin Water and Body Armor into Coke's portfolio.
Okay, and you also were involved with Zika, right?
Correct. So subsequent to Glasso, I moved on to Zico Coconut Water when the coconut water wars were happening somewhere between 2010 and 2014. It was nature's sports drink. It was all natural, and we scaled that and also exited that into Coca-Cola as a startup beverage.
Okay, and what's interesting? I just know this from the press release that you also I never heard of this brand before, Nugs, which is it's like a plant-based chicken fingers or something, chicken food.
It's a plant-based chicken nugget.
Chicken nugget.
I'm currently working on here in the U.S. Its parent company is called Simulate, privately held, but the plant-based space here in the U.S. is incredible. It's over $7 billion in sales.
Billion.
Double digits, correct. The dairy side of that, meat is actually the 3rd largest category in the U.S. Dairy makes up the top 2, milk being the first, almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk. But dairy, which is cheese, yogurt, butter, is the 2nd largest plant-based category here in the U.S., a little over $2 billion and growing at double digits. So a lot of opportunity here. Here in the U.S., we have lots of adoption of plant-based products. We have 62 or so % of household penetration. We have 79% or so of repeat purchase of plant-based products. So they are here to stay. for sure. So I'm excited to jump on board here with Matt. And, what I love about him and this opportunity is he's vertically integrated, right? We have the retail outlets to bring products to market quickly. I got my ear to the ground here in the U.S. In all sorts of categories: meat, yogurt, cheese, butter, and can help connect Matt and the team up with those brands.
Okay. Now, in terms of nugs, you got this into 10,000 doors in the
Yes.
U.S.
Yep.
All the big chains.
Correct.
And I find that interesting because again, I never heard of this brand. Like I'm maybe I'm a little bit slow, but I never heard of this, right? So to me, it seems like if you get this nugs, which is like, I mean, it sounds crazy. It's like a plant-based chicken. I'm sure it's the same path. It's the same market for the future, for Origin Foods brands. Same exact story.
It's the same template and playbook. We actually started as a direct-to-consumer brand, online only, in 2018, and then we pivoted to retail in 2020, literally at the start of the pandemic. And we make a product that is indistinguishable from an animal nugget, same taste, texture, and smell. And that's exactly what Origin has going for them, is that they make cheese and butter and dairy products indistinguishable from their animal counterparts with simpler ingredients.
Yeah. And Jack, just to highlight to that a couple things for, people watching this program, existing shareholders, new shareholders, when I was on previous interviews, I discussed, the direction of the company. We pivoted, rebranded the company into Origin Foods to highlight the CPG side. And then, I'd intimated that we were interested in adding some management experience, people who had, a depth of knowledge in the CPG space to augment, somebody like myself and the existing team we have in place. And Matt was that person that we were looking at adding, given his experience level, some of the brands he's been a part of in terms of exit strategies by larger companies acquiring brands that he helped develop. And then just his inherent knowledge of what's going on in the plant-based space and seeing what's happening with trends, that sort of knowledge and experience, and adding it to the team that we have, not only with the Future of Cheese team with Afram and Craig, but when we look towards future acquisitions, Matt's boots on the ground in the US and is seeing brands popping up there and has connections in the industry that serve us very well for the long-term growth of the company. So I think it's everybody should be very excited about it. And then when we talk about the playbook, Matt outlined, kind of what Nugs did. And I know the brand because I do carry it in Organic Garage locations as well. But their go-to-market experience was somewhat of a similar path that we chose, which is, they went direct to consumer. And while we didn't necessarily go direct to consumer, we did what we called a very small test market launch. And a lot of companies do that to help gain consumer insight, tweak things before going to mass scale. And I think the lessons that we learned, with our smaller launch here in our local market in that late October, early November has served us well for the other things that we're working on with Future of Cheese. And Matt's experience in the US market serves us well as we look at entering that market as well. So I think, very exciting time and a great addition to the team.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, so I think, from an investor perspective, I mean, we're based in the U.S., and I think that, the big opportunity for investors is that, there's like an arbitrage. Great talent is not appreciated in Canada. Talent only becomes big when it comes to the U.S., whether it's William Shatner, Pamela Anderson, Justin Bieber, all the famous comedians. I think
I'm sure a few Canadians will disagree with you on that, Jack. But.
So I think only when the Future of Cheese, when it comes to the U.S., then it's going to become huge. Do you see? I mean, it's almost like an arbitrage opportunity. I see this as like an arbitrage opportunity for investors. This is something which is trading at a very cheap valuation. If this was a U.S.-based company, if it was seen as a U.S. company, would be trading at 5 times higher probably.
For sure, I think there's a lot of money on the sidelines wanting to invest in the plant-based space. It's still a huge growth vehicle here in the U.S. And with the products, the incredible products that we have, it's just a matter of time.
Can you talk about okay? So the thing that I find interesting. Okay, so you got the nugs, the plant-based chicken things into 10,000 doors. How long did that take you? Because you're going to be following, let's say, the same playbook with Origin's brands. How long did it take? Like, what was the process? Walk us through that process.
So that was
the timeline, kind of.
Sure. Yeah, we shipped our first retail pallet in July of 2020, right at the height of the pandemic. And, a lot of people had shut down. Everybody was working remotely. So literally a lot of the selling was done over Zoom. It was amazing. And, the plant-based category was still growing. I think there were some implications that the coronavirus was tied to meat consumption, whether it was the wet meat markets of Wuhan or somebody bit off the head of a bat or swine flu. There was this association of disease to meat eating. And there was a supply chain issue with meat products in the U.S. So there was a tremendous kink in being able to get animal products, and we were able to slip right in. You start with the low-hanging fruit, much smaller, more nimble companies that will take products in anytime. The larger, more seasoned companies like Target, Walmart, Kroger, Safeway, they only go through the review process about once a year. So you're filling the gaps in the smaller chains while you're waiting for your opportunity for the pitch cycle to come up in the larger chains.
Okay, so I think one of the things that Matt has talked, Lori, the CEO, has talked about in the past was the path. We've talked about what's the path for future of cheese? The plant-based, the dairy alternative SKUs to really scale in the U.S. to become a really valuable brand, and create shareholder value. And I think Matt's talked about. Even if it only gets into let's call it, I think 500 doors or 1,000 doors, there could be some substantial revenues, right? So, and you've already gotten something which is a similar space into 10,000 doors. So, what do you see as kind of the realistic trajectory for Origin's SKUs in the plant space? Like, can we get 2,000 doors in the U.S. in the next 12 months?
I think that's very, very reasonable. I mean, here in the U.S., there's 35,000 conventional retail doors, and there's 5,000 natural channel doors. Think of Sprouts and Whole Foods. So all told, there's 40,000 retail outlets here in the U.S. alone. I mean, we're 10x the size and population to Canada, so there's a lot more stores and mouths to feed here. So 2,000, I would think, would be an easy win.
Wait, there's 35,000 you call alternative, which is Whole Foods, the Sprouts, and
there's 5,000 alternative, 35,000 supermarkets.
Okay, 5,000. Okay, so 5,000. But now, when we're talking about the alternatives, those guys, for them, this is almost this makes a lot of sense for them to pick up. Yeah. And then obviously you want to go after the other guys.
And at those alternative retailers, the velocities are much higher than traditional supermarkets. So we really should start in the natural channel space and then draft over to conventional retail where we have opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Jack, and if you remember too, that just touching on what Matt Merson said is, the numbers that I outlined in previous interviews with you, it just proves the point of how conservative they were. And so
I tell everybody, whatever you say, they should just double, because most they exaggerate. With you, people have to double or triple the numbers, whatever comes out of your mouth.
But it just goes to show the scalability of the company and the potential that's out there. And I had outlined, a 500 to 1,000 door scenario, with 10 SKUs, pack 6, turning 1 case per SKU per door, and we were an $8 million a year company. And especially like Matt mentioned, the turn rates on some of the high consumable categories that we're in right now, which is butter and cheese, and by extension, some of the other things we're looking at, which is yogurt and milk. These are high consumable categories. So the turn rates can even be much higher, but just going very conservative, 1 case per SKU per door. Some doors will obviously turn much higher. Some doors might turn less, but as an average, just using that as an average, at 500 to 1,000 doors, what those numbers look like. And then you look at the potential in the market in the US, like Matt Merson mentioned with, 5,000 doors in the alternative space, which is our ideal retailer, and 35,000 in the more atypical conventional and mass space, you can start to multiply on your own as a viewer what potential there is. Once we line up the things which I outlined in previous interviews, which was, to secure a co-packer, work with the co-packer on line extensions, of which we already have a lot of the recipes in place, but we want to tailor those with the co-packer, link up with a few quality distributors across, the US, and then scale in with retailers. So it's a tried and proven approach, and we're working towards that. And some of that starts with Matt's appointment to our advisory board.
Matt Merson, I want to ask you this. We got a question which I was about to ask you, so this is very good timing here. You're basically, pretty much, I would say, a lot of people in the plant-based CPG space, brand, these startup brands, etc. I mean, like right behind you, you got a whole shelf of products. I don't know if they're, the brands you're working with, different, but I guess the question is what, I think what the big story for Origin is going to be, and I think what a lot of investors see as the potential for them to really kind of, I don't know if the word is consolidate, but to roll up a bunch of really quality niche brands in the plant-based space, maybe other like kind of lifestyle products in that kind of organic lifestyle brand, and sell through their stores, but also really scale it globally. What kind of opportunities are you seeing in terms of M&A?
Well, I mean, some of the largest plant-based products on the meat side here in the U.S. have already been gobbled up. Gardein was acquired. Just recently, Daya was acquired. Well, it's 2017, so a little bit ago. But, Morningstar Farms here in the U.S. is owned by Kellogg's. So there's a lot of activity across all segments of plant-based products.
And Jack, just to highlight to that, and Matt Merson can speak to this, but for viewers that might not be aware, but the largest natural food expo, I believe in the world, just happened recently, which is Expo West.
Right.
Takes place in California. Matt Merson was there. We actually had one of our Origin board members was in California and attended the show and walked the show as well. So that show is not only for established large brands, but a ton of startups go to that show to build brand presence. And so we had one of our board members walking the show, checking out brands. Matt attended the show with the company he's currently with, but that's an opportunity, and Matt, you can speak better to this, but to see what's coming up in the industry, what are some up and coming brands, and that is a chance to network, to interact with brands, to see things before they've hit, the multinationals or been acquired. There's a lot of small mom and pop brands. And I've always said from an acquisition standpoint, an M&A standpoint, I see certain things at the retail level before they hit mass. So I have a pipeline of brands, that are small and ripe for potential acquisition. We can help them scale. Matt Merson in the US is attending all the major trade shows and sees the same things, that I see at the retail level, but at the CPG level at these trade shows, given his contacts and connections. And we have, board members who stay well versed in the industry. So from a CPG acquisition standpoint, we've always said we're not going to overpay for brands. Our goal is to get brands that we feel could utilize the expertise that we have inherent with our company, that can use like-minded resources across the different brands and focus on the plant-based, organic and wellness space, to have synergies across the different brands. And so it starts with, this appointment and working together as a team to identify those brands that are up and coming that could be ripe for us to help assist.
What kind of, Matt Merson, what kind of other brands or products do you think would make sense? Because, so right now, Origin, they're in the dairy alternative space. In terms of adding acquisitions, what do you think makes the most sense in terms of synergies? Do you see other dairy alternatives or other things in other words, I guess the idea is the more SKUs you have, the more leverage you have into getting into more doors in the retail, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. And really, I would have to defer to Matt for the strategy there. But there's lots of really great milks that are continue to emerge into the marketplace, which would make a great complement to the dairy products that he's working on now. I would have to say that plant-based seafood is taking off, or at least was very highly on display at Expo West this past month. So, those are some of the things that I would recommend.
Yeah,
Okay.
and by extension to that, Jack, just when we look at category management within the dairy space, Matt's absolutely right. The milk space is a natural fit. A lot of the co-packers we are in discussions with because we use nuts in our product. A lot of the milks, whether it be almond, cashew, and then even by extension oat, they're all utilizing in some of the same facilities, same co-packers. You look at the next vertical, which is yogurt, and you look at the almond, cashew, coconut yogurt space. We're already in the butter space, we're already in the cheese space, but by extension in the cheese space, and we could blow out, within that category alone, 8 or 10 SKUs. So there's some natural fits within the dairy category, but Matt Merson's absolutely right. When we extend past, the dairy space, and you look at lifestyle brands that have expanded into other verticals, you look at Daya as a perfect example, who expanded in not only in the dairy-based alternative space, but you look at frozen pizzas, you look at ice cream, you look at they have cheesecakes, they have boxed pasta, they have cheese sauce in the pasta section. So for people, especially in the wellness space, who are brand followers, they like to see brands that they've adopted and trust into different categories as they do go through their shopping experience. And so a lot of these brands, I point to Daya, I point to Amy's Kitchen as another one, where they have canned soups, they have frozen pizza, they have frozen entrees, they have burritos. It's a natural fit once a brand is trusted, to potentially see it in different verticals. And as we go down the rabbit hole with a lot of these different co-packers, it's leading to different categories that, they might not be a fit maybe for our butter right now, but they're doing yogurt. So it starts a natural conversation, or they lead us to another co-packer who's doing another vertical. So there's lots of potential within the future of brand to access different categories. But then by extension, when we look at the overall, organic and wellness space, any category within, our example, Organic Garage, is viable for acquisitions that fit into, different segments of the store.
I think, Matt, Merson, I want to get kind of your perspective, because I don't know if because it's kind of an interesting, Origin has kind of an interesting setup, because, they have, there's 4 retail stores, in this space. I mean, so they see all these brands. They got the stores. They're doing their own line of brands. Have you seen anybody else do this? Like, what's your take on this concept, and like, how do you think this could be, leveraged, for maximum, potential?
Well, to me, it's almost of a vertical integration, right? They can bring products to market quickly. They have a built-in retail outlet right there, or number of stores. Here in the U.S., I would say the similar comparison would be what I would call private label. I think the bigger operators, the Targets, the Krogers, the Walmarts of the world, have recognized this space as very valuable, and them wanting to continue to be price leaders, they have introduced their own label, plant-based products, private label products.
I want to kind of also we touched on this a little bit, but can you kind of talk about, again, like, you're involved in the space, like, what are you seeing as what could be like the big trends that, Origin could take advantage of? Like, what do you see happening in the plant-based space, and what do you see as the opportunities for Origin? Let's call it the next, 18 months.
Here in the US, we use a term called flexitarian, where people may not be 100% plant-based, but they are desperately trying to get there, but they can't get there all the way there yet. So they're eating less meat, less animal products, less dairy. And when they are having animal products, they're having smaller portions of it. So, the moons are somewhat aligning here, right? Because the category is growing. The products are fantastic. The people in the company are fantastic. And that enables, these products to get to market successfully and quickly. I think on the consumer lens, people who are eating plant-based meat are also having plant-based milks. They're also having plant-based cheeses, and they will continue to migrate into other plant-based categories after having good experiences in the first ones that they started.
I want to ask you, okay, so we're talking really about the CPG brands, but, I personally, I love the store business, the organic garage stores.
Yes.
This is the thing that I like the most. And I know that there's a plan to open, to start scaling the stores in Canada. I think there's going to be leases probably announced, I don't know, any week, whatever. But Matt, I want to kind of get from your perspective, how big is the opportunity for that, that feel, that retail merchandising feel of the organic garage stores, let's say in the US? Could you see this as like, an opportunity for 1,000+ stores, sort of like a hipper version of Trader Joe's or Whole Foods?
Is that for Matt Lurie?
Yeah, that's for you, Matt Merson.
Matt is it?
Oh, I mean, I launched several brands in Canada, including the Zico coconut water, and I was always a huge fan of their stores. Man, if there was a plan in place to template that concept and bring it to the US, I think it would be wildly successful.
Wildly successful.
I do.
Okay, you're not getting paid to say this. I mean, you say this from experience seeing the stores.
I have.
So I mean, like, what markets? I mean, like, what do you think? Like, how fast do you think it could scale in the US? Let's say they got to the US. Let's say they open a market. Like, which market do you think would be the first market the beachhead? Which one would be the first market to attack? Which would be a template for global domination?
There's no question in my mind. Like, your brands or retail outlets have to make it in certain cities before it can build out in concentric circles. And LA is ground zero for a concept like this. Like, if you can't make this concept work in LA, it's not going to work in Denver or Houston or Dallas or Florida. So LA is a big influencer market. Everybody in LA is on some sort of dietary approach, if not 2 or 3. Florida over indexes in the plant-based space.
Florida
does.
Interesting.
The coastal cities, year-round good weather, image is important. Lots of cheap real estate to build out properties, a little different than LA. San Francisco is an influencer market. Lots of technology in the food space happening there. Austin, Texas is a big CPG town.
Whole Foods started in Austin, right?
Correct.
And they started with like one store and and became huge.
Yeah.
I mean, could you see, like, imagine if Organic Garage opened a store, let's say in LA, like in Venice area somewhere, North Hollywood, whatever it is, almost, I mean, with that look, the whole merchandising, I mean, it would be a massive hit. I mean, that store would be like so successful.
Right.
One day, Jeff, we'll get there. But we definitely know. Look, West Coast has always been at the epicenter of the organic and wellness movement, and whether that's in California in the U.S. or that is in British Columbia here in Canada, it's always followed kind of the West Coast mentality. And look, I agree with Merson completely. There's key markets in the U.S. that you want to open up in. It's no different than in Canada. Look, Toronto is the market to prove yourself, and you grow from there. And so we know the potential of the Organic Garage brand, and I've spoken on the program previously. We're working very hard here, at least domestically, to start with, to capture the market opportunity that exists, and we're making a lot of progress. It never goes as fast as I'd like, but these are the ping-ponging of negotiations between our real estate team and numerous landlords, and I'm pleased with the progress we've made, and look forward to having announcements in the future.
Okay, but now Matt from Merson, are you going to be, your kind of advisory role? Is it going to be more the CPG side or stores, both? Like, what's the?
I think it's going to be a balance to that, and I'm at Matt Lurie's disposal here on what's really needed to grow the Origin business. But I have extensive background in retail operations and selling into retail bringing products to Canada, bringing products from Canada. And I also have extensive background on the CPG side. So, as I dig in and align with the plans that Matt Lurie needs, I'm at his disposal for what he wants to direct me to.
Yeah, Jack,
Okay.
and just to second that, absolutely. We'll be on both sides of the business. There's no question that Merson's experience in the CPG space is a huge, huge addition to the team and will help us not only with Future of Cheese, but with other brands that we want to explore acquiring. But then even on the retail side, Matt travels the US, meeting with retailers and sees all sorts of different, retail concepts, and has his eyes and ears to the ground and can help bring back intel for us to make Organic Garage even better than what it is today. And so, I can't say enough about the appointment. It's just been great so far, and I'm very excited for the future. For me, I've always said, on these programs, Jack, and this is, I see this as the starting line. There is so much room and runway for growth that for anybody looking at who we are and what we're up to should be super excited for the potential, for the company and how that translates into, shareholder value and stock price. And having Matt on board is something that, just, adds a tremendous amount of value.
Question for Matt Merson. How fast and how big do you see or can Origin scale with the the CPG line in the US in terms of with the with the SKUs now? I think they're going to be adding more SKUs. Maybe you might make a couple of acquisitions. I don't know. You might pick up a cashew milk or something, whatever. But how can we be in 5,000 stores, 100 million revenues by I don't know, next year?
I think that's an easy win because I just if I use what I've done here on the meat side, meat is the third largest category. So we're already operating in categories that have higher velocities and more penetration with people, that are already more fully developed. So 5,000 stores in 6 to 12 months, I think, is an easy win on the board. The products have to be here in the US, set up, ready for distribution. Manufacturing has to be in place, and then it's off to the races. If the products perform, I don't know if you had the opportunity to try them yet, Jack, but the products perform unbelievably. And I think people will, the barrier to getting somebody into the brand is usually people think they're going to have to sacrifice something on taste, texture, or smell. And that's not the case here. This product is an exact replica of the animal counterpart. So it'll be an easy transition for consumers to come over to it.
And Jack, just to quickly build on that, just one note. I know a lot of people have been asking, hey, look, what's going on with the co-packers? When are we going to see an announcement? And I just want to stress, Merson's point is absolutely why we're taking the time, because the potential, Jack, I know I'm ultra conservative, but speaking with people like Matt Merson and other people within the company, it might not be 500 to 1,000 doors. It might be 2,000, it might be 3,000, it might be 5,000. And if you do not have the proper co-packer in place to scale that brand, and Merson knows this very well through all his companies he's been with and has been invaluable in providing that guidance to say, guys, get the proper co-packers in place that can grow with your brand, because that will halt growth. If you do not sign the right co-packer and they do not have the capacity to grow to what we anticipate we can get to, then it will cap growth. And so we're taking extra time to make sure we have the proper partners in place, because I think what Merson has helped highlight to our company is once you have those people in place, the doors are there, and then it's just pushing product. And that's exactly the position we want to be in. Not only with somebody like Merson's experience and guidance and helping the company, but we've always said Afram and Craig, the two co-founders of Future, of Cheese, as media personalities, will be there to push the product when the time is right. We just want to make sure we have the key steps in place. And we've always said we will be methodical, in the beginning. We will take this time to put the building blocks in place, because once the foundation is set, the scale can be very, very rapid.
Okay, so basically, the thing that we're all waiting for is this co-packer. And now, Matt Mercer, are you involved with that? Are you kind of providing guidance on getting the right co-packer for this?
I've provided guidance to the board for operations here in the U.S. And, Matt Lurie is exactly right. I mean, having your operations and logistics in place and secure before launch is absolutely paramount here. So that is the right first step to take.
Probably a lot of investors might be thinking, I mean, because again, they're not involved in the actual business, but they're asking like, what's taking so long? How difficult could it be? Is this difficult, or what's like, why is this not happening, by, next Tuesday? Like what takes so long?
Matt, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, just my point is that if you do not link up with the companies that have the capacity, it can be a barrier to growth. And so there's only so many co-packers out there, and it takes time. We go through with co-packers, signing NDAs because they're potentially co-packing for other kind of brands in the space. They have to make sure there's no conflicts that are going to cause a problem in the long run. It is not a snap your fingers decision. And especially, given the potential we see in the market, Matt gives the example, with his current company of hitting 10,000 doors basically in 2 years. I mean, that is just phenomenal since the start of, COVID, 2 years ago. And we look at, the categories and verticals that we're in, which, go through much higher turns and are much higher, have a higher adoption in terms of getting to shelf. The potential for more is definitely there. So we have to be very, very careful.
No. Okay. So the thing I'm reading between the lines, I might be reading too much, but okay. The takeaway that I'm getting is basically you see an opportunity to really scale this massively in the US to, let's call it, 5,000 doors. So you need the co-packer could support that type of sales volumes. And there's, you got to find the right fit. So in other words, you're not looking to play for, small stakes here, a couple hundred stores. Basically, the idea here is to, go big, 10,000 stores like Matt did with the Nugs brand. Is that
Jack,
fair to say?
Reading a little bit between the lines, a little bit, yes. I mean, I think through internal discussions we've had, working with Matt Merson and others, involved with the company, we've realized that we don't want to be short-sighted here and look towards, 500 to 1,000 doors only. We want to look at what if we were in 5,000 doors or 10,000 doors, and what would those capacities be like? And are the co-packers we're in discussions with capable of scaling, if we feel that is something that we can hit? And so going back to my point, this is not a time to be short-sighted. If it takes us an extra month or two to go through the proper due diligence, we're going to do that because we see the potential for the brand. We know, some of the numbers that we could potentially hit, and we don't want to be short-sighted at this time and rush something out and then realize we made a mistake. So, good thing for the long term in terms of what we feel the potential is there. Yes, would everybody like us to sign up a co-packer by Jack's timeline of next Tuesday?
At 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock, absolutely, maybe 2:59 if possible. But we want to be prudent, and now's the time to do it because we know what we have and the potential that's there.
Okay, but the takeaway though is that Matt Merson is saying that, hey, if the co-packer is there, you can get it to 5,000 doors within a year.
Well, velocity is liquid. I mean, Matt can speak better to that because he's been through whether it be vitamin water or Zico or Nugs now. Once you have the pieces in place, the co-packer, the logistics through distribution, the retail network is there. You're talking 40,000 doors in total between natural and conventional. So even accessing a small portion of that, once you have the key players in place, the product just flows. And then it's just pushing it through savvy media and marketing, which is, going back to our other advisory board member who's been on this program, Yossi, why we have him on the team from a marketing background, because we know when the time is right, it's going to be the Afram and Craig show of pushing the product through the marketing vehicles that we have, social media and things like that. But right now is a time to focus on operations and focus with the co-packer, get the co-packer in place, work on perfecting the last, recipes to get us to that, magic mark that I've always seen, which is 8 to 10 SKUs. So we have a nice repertoire, a nice catalog to present to retailers, get the distributors in place, a few national distributors, link up with like-minded retailers. Matt Merson already mentioned, there's 5,000 natural, or alternative doors in the US, which are an easy segue for a product like ours before maybe we approach conventional and mass. So the path is there, but we're going to go through the steps and be prudent. We're not going to short step or take some shortcuts that are going to bite us in later down the road, which we don't want to have happen.
What about okay? So we got a question or a comment. 5,000 doors times 10 SKUs. 10 different products could be the future of cheese. And you have how many? You have 4 SKUs now? 5?
We have 3 butters and the brie. Yes, we have 4.
So times 1,000 per SKU. I guess a year, right? Am I doing the math correctly? 50 million in sales.
I'm not sure of that math, but I've outlined one case of 6 units per SKU per door, with an average cost to the distributor of I think I used $4 or $5, because some will be higher. The brie is a more expensive item. The butter is a cheaper item. The cheese will likely fall somewhere in the middle. But using that as an average, I think it was 500 doors or 1,000 doors, and that was 7.8 million in sales. And so the velocities could be much higher. The turn rates could be higher. Like Matt mentioned, the turn rate in natural and alternative doors, which is approximately 5,000 doors in the US, is much higher. So you could be looking, 2 cases per week per SKU. So it just depends. But that math is ultra conservative, to help at least show the guidance on a conservative level, what potential's there. Then you can just extrapolate from there.
Matt, I got a question for you. Merson, question for you. I mean, you're in the space. You're steeped in the M&A part. You know what the transactions are going for. What do you think? Let's say the stores, right? I want to focus on the stores for just a second. The organic garage stores. Now I know there's a plan to. We're gonna, I think we got 4 stores potentially opening in next couple of weeks, months, whatever it is. There's a question going around, like what kind of multiple should be played? What kind of valuation should those stores have? Is it 1 times revenue? Is it 3 times revenue? In terms of, there's 2 factors, right? One is the growth rate, how fast it can scale, but also kind of the spiritual value, the brand, the whole merchandising aspect, that whole thing. What kind of multiple do you think the market would pay in the US? Let's call it private equity, not even public, but private equity for stores like that.
That's a great question. And I personally haven't been involved in retailer transactions. All of my M&A has been on the CPG side. So, most of the brands that I've been involved with have always gone for 3 to 5 times sales.
You're talking about the CPG side, not retail. Not okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. So okay. Well, at least you answered honestly. I mean, you didn't talk about, you're not claiming expertise in retail store sale in CPG brands. Okay. So this is good. We have an honest man here. So anything you say now will carry great credibility. So the idea though is, so with that said, you said there is a real opportunity for Future of Cheese to be doing potentially 100 million in business if you can get it to 5,000 doors.
I mean, when you think about it, Jack, 4,000 doors is just 10% of the universe here.
Yeah.
Right? It's the 40,000 stores here in the US, and we're targeting just 4,000 stores. It's only 10% of the pie.
Yeah. So it's no. Okay, let's kind of wrap up. I'd like Matt, we're going to come back maybe next week or so. We'll get an update. We'll talk about the stores, the new stores, all that good stuff. I want to kind of stay focused on the CPG side. Matt Merson, what do you like? Let's kind of wrap up on this. Look, what are you most excited about in terms of the opportunity based on kind of what you see in terms of like the way this thing is set up with, Matt's got the stores, got, the access to capital markets, all this stuff, brands. What makes you most excited about this right now?
Honestly, I think I alluded to the fact that the moons were really aligning for Matt and Origin, right? The space is growing at a double-digit clip, right? 3 times faster than any other than retail food in total. So the space is growing. The products are incredible. I mean, when you try the products, they are indistinguishable, perhaps even better than their animal counterparts. The management team and the culinary team that's in place is second to none. And the fact that they're vertically integrated here, where products can be iterated on, brought to market quickly, get feedback, iterate again. It's just a launching pad for any new products that come into the portfolio.
Okay, Matt, you have the last word, and then we'll wrap up. What's the next? What other kind of news flow can we expect in the coming days and hours in terms of acquisitions, new SKUs? What kind of exciting things are in the pipeline?
Look, I don't want to say coming hours and days, but look, anybody who's followed our story knows that there was a plan in place, and Merson's appointment to our advisory board is part of that plan. And so we are working towards achieving those goals. And so we have lots of things on the go that are very exciting, whether that be on the CPG side, on the co-packer and other verticals or other CPG brands, whether that's on the retail side, the numerous negotiations that are underway with regarding retail sites. It's a very exciting time, and I'm glad that Merson has highlighted his excitement and the things that we're in. And I said it before, we are the right company at the right time to take advantage of this opportunity, and that extends not only with the future of cheese, but what else is going on in the market. We're adding the expertise to help evaluate brands that might fit into our fold, but definitely to help scale the future of business, not only in Canada but definitely the US or other markets. And we started with Yossi's appointment. From a marketing perspective, we've added Matt. It just so happens, not on purpose, that they actually worked together for a brief time at Danone. They did, yes, which was a great byproduct.
Team reunites.
The dream team reunites. So I think existing shareholders or people looking to invest should be very excited. I've always said we feel like we're just at the starting line, and we're just getting going, and the building blocks are falling into place to create the sound foundation to take a couple of big steps forward, not only on the CPG side, but the retail side as well. So it's a very exciting time.
Well, I have to add, Matt, everything, from day one, I work with a lot of publicly traded companies, a lot of CEOs, and, everything you've said, you've delivered so far. I mean, you get you talk about the SKUs, bringing in, the advisory people, getting the things. So everything is actually happening. It might take a few weeks longer than people wanted to, but it is happening. So the execution is there. So I think people should feel a sense of confidence in that this is going to happen. That this that the 5,000 stores in the U.S. is a very real possibility in the next 12 months. Again, we're looking for this co-packer. That's going to be the big. I think that's going to be the big announcement. When this is announced, like people then will say, okay, this is it. We're in 5,000 stores, and last, I want to ask one audience question, and the Kitchen Originals brand. That's like your private label brand.
That is our private.
I love that name. Matt Mercer, question for you, or both of you guys: are you going to put this in the U.S.?
I would say right now, no. It is a unique private label inherent to Organic Garage. However, the brand was built to be able to be sold into other markets. So I wouldn't say it is, top of mind. We're very focused on the future of business when it comes to U.S. expansion, and keeping Kitchen Originals, localized to the Organic Garage retail locations. But I've always said, there's lots of conversations always going on, and it's not something we would shy away from. The brand was built to be able to be sold into other markets, given the branding that's around it. And Jack, I'm glad you agree, because I think the brand stands on its own two legs. It's a great brand that we've developed. The Kitchen Originals, eat like a chef for less tagline, and the categories and verticals we're in. And look, we will leverage people's expertise. You mentioned, Matt Merson's involvement, not only on the CPG side, but the retail side. But sure as I'm saying it, I'm going to, leverage his expertise in helping expand our private label brand and look for opportunities, outside of our home market potentially. So, this is all about adding the right people. to cumulatively, you utilize everybody's experience and expertise to help grow the business. And Matt's appointment, recently will help accelerate that.
I'm going to ask one last question. Okay. Matt Merson. Okay. You're familiar, you're a food CPG guy. You're familiar with, kind of the McDonald's story, right? The guy was a Ray Kroc, he's driving around, he sees the store and they're selling, they're buying these milkshake machines because and what they had was it was like a system. It wasn't, it was just a system for doing business. It was cleanly, a bunch of things that really made it work. And the truth is, I think he paid a lot of money to the McDonald brothers to buy that, the store, the whole thing, because they had this great system, this whole franchise. Do you see that same type of thing with the organic garage stores in terms of there's something real? Like, I've never been in the store because I'm not allowed to enter Canada, but from the videos I've seen, it's really like amazing merchandising. Like I said, like, Matt Lurie, he's kind of like the Roy Disney or the Ray Kroc of retailing. And I think it's just is it a question of time before somebody in the U.S. sees this and says, wow, we're going to write this guy a check for like $500 million and just put these stores everywhere?
I'll make 2 points to that question, Jack. The first one is the McDonald's example is a food service example. And when you think of food service operations like McDonald's at scale, it's not about brand or product. It's about operationally being driven. McDonald's is run by operations, meaning they have the same products. It's easy to secure. They're served the same way. They taste the same way. The menu is very condensed and minimized to force people to make quick decisions on a limited menu. Subway, Burger King, they are all operationally driven. Now, yes, they do bring new products to market occasionally or whatever, but operations runs those food service systems. At scale in retail, with a Walmart or a Target or a Kroger, those guys are operationally driven, right? The system has to keep churning in order for 4,000 Walmart stores to run efficiently, operationally driven. However, in the smaller space, I would encourage anybody to come out to LA and see what a more natural, organic type operation, retail operation, can do to differentiate themselves from their competitors. And that's an opportunity for Organic Garage for sure.
Okay, excellent. On that note, I want to thank you guys, and we'll catch up with you in the next live stream, hopefully with news about store openings, more SKUs, and other global domination.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
Everybody.
Thanks, Jack.
And thank you, everybody, for joining our live stream. We'll see you on the next one.